So, Mark, the entire world melted down as CrowdStrike sent out a rogue update, and the entire airline industry basically melted down, except one airline stood above the rest with their antiquated technology.
Southwest has like their own built-in Faraday cage against technology because they're still stuck in like floppy disk 80s with Windows 2 or whatever. But did you see this tweet that was going around? Everybody was sharing it all over. I wish it was real from them. It's epic.
It really is, and it's not far from the truth. I mean, we know their technology is so outdated. It's been frustrating for customers because we run into these limitations with Southwest all of the time, but this nailed it perfectly. That joke, Commodore 64, maybe some rats running around on wheels in the basement, but it works when the whole world melts down.
They knew they couldn't put that out there in public because they had the meltdown last year all on their own.
The big news of this week was that CrowdStrike outage and all of the sort of repercussions. A lot of people stuck at airports for a long time. I saw paper boarding passes for the first time in a long time. Basically, entire systems were shut down, and the update was very sort of tedious that you had to go into each machine and it took forever. And what happens a lot of times with airlines and these big sort of meltdowns is they can't just recover right away because of staffing and pilots and hours and getting their people in the right position. And some airlines have recovered better than others. I think Delta had it the worst this week. They're still recovering, but it was a terrible time to be at an airport. And it seems like we see this every year now, whether it's this or something else. There's these giant meltdown days.
Yeah, or just like a big storm that wipes them out. And that's the problem when they have like just in time delivery. They don't have extra planes, sitting waiting to get in there and pick up more passengers. They need this plane to get there before they can get these people to the other place. So that's the problem, is that they run a tight ship, and whenever anything goes wrong, it's like a huge domino effect that takes forever to get people back to where they are. But we first started seeing this roll out, like pictures at airports, like Vegas was one that had people everywhere. I just wouldn't even go. Like, when it's that bad, do you even go? Unless you really have to get out. I'm like, hey, I'm not gonna be back for another day or two. Rebook my flight or scramble and try to book on Southwest with points. Look for airlines that are working well. That's the great thing about miles and points, is you can like be flexible, and yeah, you're going to pay through the nose potentially, but at least you're not coming out of pocket for money or anything like that. Like, I wouldn't even have messed with Delta. I would have been like, hey, just give me a refund. I'm going to go Southwest.
Yeah, I see that. I mean, we've talked before about how travelers who aren't as experienced, they get way too in the weeds with this stuff. And there are people who are traveling internationally, they're on business trips, they're on one-time vacations where they can't really go around it. So it's never fun to do this. I do think experienced travelers can handle it a little better and find alternative ways, or just accept the reality a little better than maybe people who still have hope that something, screaming at the attendant at the gate is going to help them in some way, which I saw plenty of videos of that. Like, why didn't you tell us? And well, there was an update that it's not like the airlines themselves messed this up. So they still had to figure out what was going on and how to fix it. And yeah, it's a mess. Don't scream at the gate agents. Like, I mean, I've wanted to scream at a gate agent or two in my life, but don't do it.
If they're rude to you, like over the top, okay, but don't scream at them because of a delay or something. They have no control over that. And actually being nice gives you a better shot. Like, because so many people are mean. If you're nice, they're more willing to do something for you, and they might give you something that they just told the person in front of you that they couldn't. So that's always the thing. But I don't know. My friend was able to fly out of Denver at she was supposed to leave at 7 a.m. to get back to Detroit on Delta, and ended up taking off at 8 a.m. Midnight flight got canceled, and the 10 a.m. flight got canceled. Somehow hers got out, even though it was a mess. Somehow she got lucky.
I suspect next year we'll have another story of another meltdown and people screaming at gate agents and the stress of it. I guess you just have to be aware that it could happen in these days of technology. But if you were flying and you got a paper boarding pass, a manually written out one, that's a souvenir. Keep it.
Yeah, they didn't even have like seat numbers on it or anything. It's kind of crazy.
So sticking with airports, let's talk TSA. And it's busy. A lot of people are traveling. And they just reported July 18th was the third busiest day ever for TSA with 2.956 million passengers. But here's the kicker, Mark. They put out this whole chart showing all of the busiest TSA days ever, and they're all in the last 2 months.
Yeah, that's nuts. We thought revenge travel was like 2022 and maybe a little bit into 2023, and we weren't going to see those kind of numbers again. I don't know where all these people are going. Prices are sky high a lot of times throughout the summer to go places. So even like awards are very expensive. I don't know how everybody's affording this, but it's crazy to see that we're having, the busiest time ever right now. And then, of course, third busiest day, just a day or two before everything melted down. So you have the most people out there probably ever in like in a 3-day period, all stranded together. It's crazy.
It's nuts to think about 3 million people in a day getting screened and flying, and it's a huge operation. TSA gets so much shade, sometimes rightfully so, but it is a crazy operation, and they're doing so much work every single day in and day out, making everybody safe. So it's a fascinating thing, but I am shocked that this summer seems to be the busiest ever. I thought it would slow down a little bit, and just to watch this, yeah, I mean, the busiest days ever in the last 2 months. It's really
What shade?
eye-opening.
They're really good at catching that shampoo bottle that's too big. I mean, the weapons, who cares about those? Let those through. Those aren't the big thing. We can't have shampoo on the plane, Sean.
And as I said, people give them shade, marked among them. So here's some good news and bad news. So JetBlue Mint is among the most beloved products, I think, in the U.S. aviation space. They launched their new Mint product, which they fly overseas, which is great. Their older Mint product, still better than most other airlines are flying on most routes. And it isn't on all routes, but now they're changing things up a bit because their non-Mint routes, their regular planes, didn't have first class. They just had 32-inch seat pitch, which was best in the industry. So when you went and flew JetBlue, you got more leg room than you would get everywhere else. And, you got other perks like free internet, stuff like that. Well, it's changing a little bit, not the internet, but the seats. And they're adding first class, and they're cutting the leg room down in economy to 30 inches from 32. So I guess if you get upgraded or you're Mosaic or you like to fly on that Mint premium cabin, even though this is more like a standard domestic first class seat, everybody else is missing out here.
Yeah, when I saw Mini Mint, I was like, oh, cool. They're going to have like, the big recliners or maybe like premium economy that you see overseas with the kickstands and stuff. And then they're like, oh, this is basically like the seat that other people use. I'm like, oh, well, that's not exciting. I mean, I guess it's exciting if you have Mosaic, makes it more worthwhile to have that status. But for most people, this is going to be a downgrade. If you're flying in economy, you're going to have less, leg room. They're not adding a ton of first class, so you don't have that much opportunity for upgrades or stuff. And I'm sure the prices won't be cheap. Their miles aren't the best for that because it's tied to a flat, variable price. I think it's more bad than good.
I agree. I remember just a few years ago when JetBlue went from 34 to 32 inches. Because they used to have you would get on there and it would feel like you were in a main cabin extra seat or a stretch seat, and it was just their regular seats. Then they cut it back a little bit. Now they're basically just like other airlines, and you're seeing them sort of become like American, United, Delta, and move to that business model. So maybe this is just the maturation of JetBlue, I guess, from being that quirky airline that gives you a little bit more to being one of the big boys.
Yeah, we've seen that with Southwest too. They've, upped their fees and increased costs and given less to the customer when that's what they built their whole, thing on to get the fourth biggest was, hey, we're different. We're going to treat you better and all that stuff. So it just seems like as they mature, they get less into that and are like, oh, we're giving up money. We should be making more money. It's sad to see.
The big question is, will Southwest ever add first class seats?
What are you talking about?
I think
they got the business.
someday.
They got the business tickets that are the most worthless tickets in the world.
Hey, you get I had one when on my recent trip to Nashville. I got A6 or something. So you do get that early check-in. But yeah, other than that, hey, I got the exit row. That's Southwest first class right there.
There you go.
I think Southwest has to add first class. That's my prediction in the next 10 years. So hopefully we'll be around to see it come true. But I do think eventually they will do that. Are they a low-cost carrier? Are they a big boy? It seems like they want to be a big boy, and they are, really. But they're still operating on a model like Spirit or Frontier. Not quite, but every seat's the same. People want to be fancy.
Yeah, I think that, they got to do something there. And I would just love to see them actually have a calendar that goes out, 11 months like most everybody else. That'd be cool. Can we get that first?
See technology discussion earlier in the show. No, it's not. So let's go on to the credit card news section. We're going to bring all the credit card news to you in this section of the show. And let's start with a Capital One Venture card. Has an increased offer, 75,000 miles with a capital M after 4,000 in spend in the first 3 months. I don't know why it tickles me that they always capitalize the word miles because it's a proper noun, but there we go. Good offer, increased offer.
They called it miles before they could even be transferred, so they weren't even miles. It was just cash back before. So yeah, it's nice to see 75,000, upwards. We've seen 100,000 before, but it's been a minute, and this is kind of in that same realm with the $250 bonus that you get, and the way you use it is you go through their travel portal to book a hotel, a flight, a car rental, something like that. So it's kind of like $1,000 cash both ways. You can transfer miles too, so you have that option, or you can use it as a travel eraser. It's a really great offer.
Yeah, I was thinking about what my favorite use of Capital One miles is, and I don't have a ton of them. I do have some from my like Venture X, and I tend to use them as like eraser miles. They have some other partners like Aeroplan, like Avianca Life Miles that you can get elsewhere, so I tend to not use them for that. But because I do have a limited amount, what is your favorite partner with Capital One
Yeah,
miles?
I mean, funny enough, I do the same thing. I don't know why. You can transfer. They don't have very many unique partners or any. So you have overlap with Amex, MR, membership rewards, or Chase Ultimate Rewards, stuff like that. So you're kind of like, oh, what should I do with these? And they're towards the bottom of my valuation of miles. So you think that I transfer them out first, but no, I save them for like the guilty pleasures. Like we talked about where I went to Universal for the VIP experience in California, and I used the Capital One eraser to pay that off. So I do it like these things that I would not spend money on normally traveling, like maybe upgrading my seat, stuff like that, or even like dining at the resort or having a fun day at the pool and just ordering whatever drinks you want, not worrying about it, wiping it off when you check out using your eraser. So it lets me be like guilty pleasures while I travel that I wouldn't pay for normally.
Yeah, let us know what you guys use your Capital One miles for. One quirk about applying for Capital One is they tend to run credit across all three bureaus. So just you might get inquiries on all three credit bureaus. If you're not into that, some people don't like that, but just be aware of it. Some people have had success freezing one of them. I've just sucked it up. Anytime I have to apply, I get the 3 hits and move on. So just make sure it's worth it to you, but that's a good deal. We have an update on the 120,000 Inc. preferred offer. Specifically, Chase has been matching people who applied before they increased it, but with a caveat. Anybody who applied before May 23rd is not getting matched, and after is getting matched. But then we have reports that other people have gotten an exception to that. So I guess the moral of the story is to just try and see if they'll match you.
Yeah, I think the exceptions all happen really early on, maybe before they put this cap on. They usually go back like 30 days, so that number is basically a month before the offer went up publicly. So it's kind of expected, but there was like one or two that slipped through the cracks that asked like the very first day and got a helpful agent. So if you're past that, you should more than likely get approved for that, which is cool. You don't miss out on those extra 20,000 points. It's the same amount of spend. So it's always cool. Chase is one of the better ones at doing that. A lot of banks just say, sorry, whatever. Tough luck.
So this next one is just a correction from a previous show. The Schwab cash out. I had previously said that you could only do 4 million every 7 years. There is a thing in the terms that says 4 million every 7 days. And somehow I read years. Shout out to Larry for correction, and shame on you, Mark, for not catching it.
Yeah, I was on vacation that week, so I wasn't in the weeds as much as normal. But we were like both, this is so weird. Why would they do that? Well, because they did it.
Hey, sometimes it happens, and yeah, we own up to it. Thanks again to Larry for pointing it out. So let's go into the miles and points news portion of the show. 2 new transfer bonuses. There's 4 total active right now, and you do a good job of tracking them on Travel on Points. All the current ones, Air Canada, Aeroplan, and IHG Rewards have bonuses from Chase. Those expire at the end of July. Those are not new. And the new ones are Citi Thank You Point bonuses, 25% transfer bonus to Air France, KLM Flying Blue, and 20% to Wyndham Rewards. Both expire August 17th.
Yeah, I think the KLM one's a good one. We talked about in a previous show how Virgin really destroyed the Delta chart. So KLM's kind of the best. Air France Flying Blue is kind of the best option for flying Delta flights, especially internationally, as well as they have good deals on their own metal, which means their own airline. So that's a good one to look into if you haven't and you fly Delta or are looking to go to Amsterdam or France or something like that. You might be able to get a pretty good deal with that bonus.
Yeah, the downside of Flying Blue, they do charge fuel surcharges on some flights, especially their own metal and some of their partners, but they're not always terrible. And sometimes they have some incredible deals with different routes and different pairs into Europe. For example, a couple of years ago, I was flying to our meetup in Detroit from Europe, and I flew from Paris to Detroit for 9,000 Flying Blue plus like $100 one way. Now that was an economy. They have other specials, but it is a program to have on your radar, and it's always nice when you can get transfer bonuses. But as we've said before, don't transfer without a use in mind because you never know. But if you can take advantage of it, it's always, Yeah, it's good. So this next thing is a Hyatt Suite Upgrade issue that you ran into. Every year, Hyatt changes award categories for certain properties. So if you book before they change, you're sort of locked in. You book after, the prices change. And if you were to like change the nights or rebook that stay, it would go under the new pricing. But sometimes you have to change a reservation by using a suite upgrade, and their system is kind of screwy for that because it charged you when it shouldn't have.
Yeah, it's very manual process. You know, we've talked a lot about technology earlier in the show, and this is a problem. They basically like canceled the booking that you had and then rebook you in the room with the suite attached. So normally that's not a problem, but this one went from a category 4 to a category 5. So the price went up 5,000 points a night. And I woke up and noticed that, hey, I'm missing 10,000 points. I reached out to them on Twitter via direct message, and they quickly added the points after going back and forth a little bit, explaining what happened. And that was fine. But if I hadn't been paying attention, I might not have noticed. Some people chimed in that when they do it on cash days, they notice that it goes to a higher price. But they always say the back end will update in a couple days and we'll move it back. So maybe the points would have moved back eventually. I don't know. I don't trust it, but it's something to be aware of. It's kind of scary.
Yeah, I have done this before and with my concierge and had it manually, they did it all at the same time. Hyatt's system isn't the easiest to see when points come out of your account if you didn't know your balance before. Yeah, so this can be tricky. So you just got to kind of pay attention and be aware that it could happen. The agent should have just done it automatically. But as far as I understand, they're not rebooking the entire reservation. They're changing, but anytime you make a change within the reservation, it just defaults to the current pricing. I don't know. It is a glitch. It's a limitation of their system and something that they should honestly work out, because you shouldn't, as a customer, have to figure out that they charged you 10,000 points and get it fixed.
Yeah, luckily I was like right at a normal number, like 100,000 points. So it was easy to notice the drop, where if I was at like 114,000, I might not have noticed it as clearly. And like you said, in the history, it didn't show my original booking anymore at 24,000 points. It just showed the new booking at 34,000 points. So if I wouldn't have known that, I wouldn't have noticed it either. Like, it doesn't have a good debit and credit system lined up there so you can easily track what's going on.
So United has these really cool promotions called Mile Play. These are targeted promotions that they send out to everybody occasionally, and then you can check the link, see what you're targeted for. And they have a new round of these, which some of them are pretty lucrative. The list here, I'm seeing book one trip of 225 or more, get 12,000 miles. I wish I had that one. Other ones require more trips. The one I got was book 3 trips and get 7,000 miles, which is a bit much, I think. But some of these are really good.
Yeah, we saw as high as 42,000 miles, I think was the highest one. But that was like book 3 premium trips at $500 plus each, which, most people aren't going to do. But, you definitely want to check just to see, especially if you're travel for work and stuff and they pay for it. That's even better when you can double dip these things. But it's always worth checking to see. And if you get something like, hey, I'm getting 15,000 miles and I only have to take a $150 flight, it might be worth booking a trip just to get it, because you're getting more value back. You get a free flight out of it, essentially, and get to travel somewhere for a bit. So it's always fun. Maybe it adds a little bit something to something you already had booked. If you had already booked the flight and then you trigger this offer, just check and see if the price is the same, cancel and rebook, because you have to book after activation. But if the price has gone up, it's probably not worth it. But if it stayed around the same, then it might be.
And a lot of people don't like United for whatever reason. I didn't like them a lot, but I've flown them more recently because I have United Travel Bank credit that I get because of the Platinum card. I use my credits for that. So I've flown them quite a few times this year and have had great experiences. So definitely would be an airline I would fly if I have to, and you should probably too.
You haven't been dragged off the plane?
Not yet. So let's end with some cool stuff. Mark has a bad word.
Oh, what I put in there? I put cool stuff. Bleep. We call it cool-ish.
I know, but I was thinking about editing the show, and I was like, do I really want to have to find the bleep sound effect? So I just decided to say cool S. The Jose Cuervo Express. This is some cool S. It goes from, this is a tequila train, Mark. I mean, what else do you want? Tequila train goes from Guadalajara to the town of Tequila. Depending on the ticket you buy, you get open bar, you get tequila tastings along the way. I think it's 11 hours. And this seems like the best way to go do this.
Yeah, it seems really cool. I know some people said they booked the train each way, which you can do, I guess, versus taking the bus down or whatever. So that's the way I would do it. That's that's a long trip, but no, it looks really cool, and I think you get a tour, you get music, you get everything. I mean, the train looks amazing. I love train rides, and I've always wanted to go on like the old school, super fancy trains, and this looks like right up that alley. I've never heard of this before. I just saw it like scrolling through some stuff. A really cool write-up review or overview of it, and I definitely want to do it now. Not been on my radar, but now I need to go back to Mexico.
Yeah, I've been trying to get down there for a long time. There's a cool amusement park in Guadalajara. Gone to go to Tequila. I've had friends do those tours in Tequila, and it seems like a really cool time to kind of pair those cities. And anytime you can get on an old train with booze and just enjoy the ride, I agree with. I don't think that if you drive, it's nearly that long. So I can't imagine how slow this train is going, but it is a unique sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a one-time thing. The reviews I read were all glowing and said one of the coolest, like the best distillery, brewery type tour they've ever taken. And then just the train experience was really, really unique and cool. So definitely, I didn't know there was a Tequila Mexico. I should have known that. That's kind of crazy. I mean, it's the same as like Champagne, France and all that stuff. I mean, all the tequila comes from these agave plants for the most part in this area. So if you love tequila, I think it's definitely something to check out.
I'm going to blow your mind too, but there's a state in Mexico called Tabasco as well.
Oh
so,
boy.
And Chihuahua. There's so many good things in Mexico for you to enjoy. So let us know what you guys think.
Eat some peppers.
So let us know what you guys think about anything we talked about today. The Tequila Train, Hyatt Suite Award issues, the credit card news, us screwing up that thing. Of course, the travel meltdown, Crowdstrike, all of that stuff. Were you stuck in it? Let us know in the comments. We do a new show every Wednesday. Still a new channel. Appreciate your support. Don't forget to subscribe, share our videos. We have a bonus video coming out this weekend as well. Hope you enjoy it. Thanks so much for watching. Talk to you next time.
Have a good week, everybody.